Look, if you're confused on what you want to do next, ask yourself, what are the principles that I'm following and how do they manifest into the next actions I need to take? Hey, what's going on? In this video, I wanted to talk about principles thinking and principles decision making. And I feel like it's an important topic for many entrepreneurs to understand because, in general in life, there's not very many people giving you a clear-cut path. There's no real step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to getting from point A to point B in your life. Maybe it's a certain level of income, maybe it's a certain status that you're achieving, maybe it's like certain relationship, maybe whatever it may be. And I'm realizing this as a younger guy too, so I'm 19, right? And being 19, I've got a lot of decisions to make in my life right now. I've got a lot of decisions regarding where I'd like to live, where I want to go with my life, what I want to do with my life, especially not going to college and not having that like structure of just like, all right, go to college, get a job, do this, because that's what most kids have. I just make all these decisions myself, and I'm very independent in that way. And sometimes that can get to me and I can feel a little overwhelmed with all the decisions that I have to make and all the things that I have to decide on, based on, business, based on like the relationships I want to have, based on all these things. And at this current time in my life, I spend quite a bit of time confused about the general direction of where I'm headed. Not so much the day-to-day. With business, I do great. With my family, I do great. With my friends, my relationships, rocking it. But like in general, I can get really confused about what the next year, 2, 3 years has, because things are pretty like, they kind of sway and there's like no rock solid foundation for me to work off of at the current moment, right? And the closest thing I have to that is my family, which is why I've decided instead of moving out, I'm just going to pay market value rent here in the home, because there's no other way for me to have like a solid foundation. If I'm not going to college, there's no real reason for me to move out. I decided I might as well just stay home and continue to build my business from here. And that's something that probably doesn't vibe super well with like the entrepreneur like lifestyle, go, super independent, fly around the world, whatever. And I could be doing that, but it doesn't have the same appeal, because it feels kind of void. It feels kind of meaningless to do that. It doesn't feel like it'd provide any real value to me at this stage. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about basically a theory or a principle or an idea, whatever you really want to call it, that I've been thinking about, and it's principles thinking, and it's principles decision making. So what a lot of people want, and as an educator I know this because I educate on the topic of entrepreneurship. I've sold like courses, I have coaching programs and all this stuff, and I've been in this business for a long time. A lot of people want a step-by-step process, and step-by-step processes don't work and they don't exist. They may work for a certain amount of time, but then they stop working, right? For example, like with the e-commerce niche, there's lots of people trying to sell maybe like a Shopify program, and they would teach you like, here's the 6 steps, and then you have like a 6-figure e-commerce business or whatever. It's like, that doesn't exist. And there's lots of people out there that sell like real estate programs or whatever, same thing. Here's the 15-step process to owning your own rental home and like, or whatever. I don't know, you get the point. And so though they may work in the moment, like for like the 2-3 year span of which they are sold, they don't work long term, right? And so that begs the question, okay, how do people come up with systems? Where do you start in order to invent a system? How do you backtrack as somebody who's learning or as somebody who's teaching? How do you step back from a system and arrive at the core foundation that builds that system? And well, what you have to do is you have to think of the principles that the system follows. For example, with any business education you're going to receive, whether it's from some sort of a college, which, you probably know my opinion, I think it's total bull, but let's say you go to college and you get a business degree. At the end of the day, most of what they're teaching you is how to serve customers. So most businesses, no matter what, whether you learn from me, one of my programs, or my teaching, or if you work with my agency, I value serving you more than anything else. That's the goal, because that creates revenue. So we know that business is solving problems, it's serving people, it's helping them in return for cash currency, right? In any form, whether it's digital or physical or whatever, right? So we know that that's the principle. And so how do we build off of that? And there's principles behind that even, which are, every single individual human has their given birth rights on this planet, which are, the right to live and the right to, at least exist, and the right to their own possessions and things like that, right? And so once we have those things in play, then we have the idea that trade can happen, which allows economics to grow and allows economies to thrive and allows people to trade services for money and products for money. And then we can begin to talk about business and how to build a scalable business online, offline, whatever. And that's where you work off of, right? So the principle behind business, for example, is solve problems. So if you know that in order to make money, you have to solve problems, then instead of looking for ways to make money, you look for problems to solve, right? And that allows you to be much more creative with the way in which you build your business. Now, the reason I talk about this is because so many people look for, again, these systems. They look for, like, people come to me. They say, what's the first step to become an entrepreneur? I'm like, that is such a loaded question. I couldn't even tell you. It is an impossible question for me to answer. It's also like asking how fast does it take to run a mile? Well, there's so much involved. Like, you could be a 400-pound overweight man in his 60s. That's going to give you a different mile time than somebody like me who's 19 and I weigh less than like 140 most of the time, right? So like that is, you see what I'm saying? So there's so many things involved in answering that question. So when somebody looks for a system, let's say you're selling a system on how to run a mile in less than 5 minutes. It's a 60-day plan or something. The problem is that system won't work a couple of years from now or whatever, or it won't even sell because people aren't interested in running 5-minute mile or something, or maybe the national diet changes and now what you're selling is kind of just normal for people, right? So systems don't last, but principles do. The principles behind running a 5-minute mile would probably be things like, practicing and allowing your body to take shape around the goal that you're trying to achieve. Moving your body often enough and intensely enough that allows your body to train and build new muscle and more cardiovascular, fortitude that allows you to take on that mile at a faster pace and not pass out or die in the process. Maybe there's diet involved as well, right? So there's principles behind what drives that. And so I want you to start thinking, if you're an entrepreneur, instead of thinking, okay, what's the next step? Ask, what principles am I following? And how do those principles manifest into actions? What actions do I take based on the principles that I either am naturally, subconsciously, or consciously and unnaturally following? And how do they tell me what to do? And so for me, the reason this is such an important topic for me right now is because I am some of the time dreadfully confused as to what the next step is. I don't have college. I don't have a structure around me. I have very few people giving me step-by-step guidance, and they're wise not to. My greatest mentors are people who tell me principles, and it frustrates the living, whatever out of me. But at the same time, it's what I need, because if they told me what to do, they'd be removing from me the ability to think for myself and make the right decision based on my principles. And you can find this in this book. You can find more on this in this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It talks about how most successful people think in principle thinking. I believe that's in that book. I may be wrong. But if you want more on this topic, that's a great book to read. And it will help you decide what to do next. So maybe practically for agency owners, like a lot of my following is, maybe you're looking again for a system. You're like, okay, somebody just tell me what to do so I can have a 6-figure business or whatever. Like, okay, slow down, first of all. You have to figure out why you're wanting to build the business you're wanting to build. Secondly, you have to discover what makes business work. Well, it's serving people, solving problems. Then lastly, you need to create a system around serving people and solving problems. And I'm making another video soon about how to build systems and how to create a business underneath you that you can function from the top, and how to view a business as a separate entity and as a system instead of as this fluctuating crazy thing, right? And so I hope this video is valuable to you, and I hope it makes sense. I hope this didn't come off too much as a ramble, because I tried to prepare some mental notes on what I really wanted to say. The general consensus is, look, if you're confused on what you want to do next, ask yourself, what are the principles that I'm following and how do they manifest into the next actions I need to take? because if you follow those principles throughout your entire life, you're gonna find, and I'm 19, so maybe this thesis or this theory isn't totally correct, but if you follow those principles throughout your entire life, you'll find at the end of your life that the principles are what got you to where you are, not the short-term decisions or the short systems or whatever it may be, right? At the end of the day, if you don't know your principles, look at your actions. Your actions tell you what you believe in your principles more than anything else does. No matter how good intentions you have, if you're making bad actions, then your principles are bad. And so you need to align your actions with your principles once you discover your principles, and then allow them to manifest into a beautiful life that you can be proud of and share with others and use to inspire other people. So hope this video made sense to you. It probably applies to non-entrepreneurs as well. If you're in any sort of field where it requires personal growth, which I don't think there's a single field out there that exists that doesn't require you to challenge yourself in some fashion, then this probably applied to you. And I hope you took something away from this. So once again, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Coming out with some more videos on some funnels that I'm building and stuff like that, but I really feel like we need to be talking about this sort of stuff more often, and I feel like you may need more transparency from me as like a young entrepreneur, what I'm dealing with and what I'm confused about and the things that I'm discovering as I'm studying these topics. So yeah, I feel like I keep trying to end the video and then I can't end it, so I'm just gonna end it here. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.